Well, folks, I said in a previous video that maybe Wizards of the Coast and Hasbro were trying to end the year on an up note with the announcement of a re-release of at least a historical version of original Dungeons & Dragons and a revisit to the Lost Caverns of Sojkant, that perhaps 2024 would be better. But 2023 is not going out on a high note for them, at least not according to stock reports. But before we get into that, of course, I want to remind everybody that this video is brought to you by our friends at Hellebarde Games. Hellebarde makes the kind of adventures they'd like to play, whether it's for Castles and Crusades, 5th edition, or the OSR. Old School is in play at the table with Hellebarde Games, and you can check them out at DriveThruRPG or on their website, hellebardegames.com. And I'd like to remind everybody, if you haven't already, please do click the subscribe button, click the bell icon for notifications, and if you like this video, do give it a thumbs up and leave me a comment below and tell me what you liked about it, and I'll do more of it. So let's get into this. This was news that came out yesterday, and it's pretty unhappy news. And I'm going to be 100% honest with you folks. I don't revel in this. I'm not celebrating this at all. I think this is terrible. I can dislike what Hasbro does and feel deeply for the people who are affected by this. So this comes to us from TechCrunch, and this and all the other links I will put below in the description. So thanks very much to TechCrunch. So let's take a quick look at this piece. And this is from their gaming. This says, Hasbro to cut 1,100 jobs despite Dungeons & Dragons thriving. This is Amanda Silberling. Hasbro is laying off 1,100 employees, according to an SEC filing. The company behind franchises like Dungeons & Dragons and Transformers, Hasbro, already laid off 800 employees in January, and we did a video about that as well. While some employees will find out about the fate of their jobs on Tuesday, others will be cut in the coming year. By 2025, Hasbro told shareholders, the company hopes to save about $350 million to $400 million in costs. Hasbro CEO Chris Cox wrote in a memo to employees shared within its SEC filing that he will direct the company's attention to licensing opportunities, scaling entertainment, and freeing up our own content dollars to drive new brand development. He blames the company's losses on vague market headwinds. I blame the company's losses on the fact that they have pissed off a major portion of their fan base, but that's just my opinion. Hasbro's overall revenue declined 10% year over year, but Hasbro owns Wizards of the Coast, the company that makes Dungeons & Dragons and Magic the Gathering, which brings in over $1 billion each year. In the division of the company that runs Wizards of the Coast and digital gaming, revenue is up 40% year over year to $423.6 million, netting a $203.4 million operating profit. Despite this huge growth, Hasbro as a whole has struggled. So it seems Cox is refocusing Hasbro's efforts on what actually is making the company money. D&D has become increasingly popular over the last several years, in large part due to third-party content creators like Critical Role and Dimension 20, in which an ensemble cast plays Dungeons & Dragons for the audience's entertainment. The franchise also made a splash this year with a Hollywood film and the hugely successful Baldur's Gate 3, a video game that licenses Dungeons & Dragons IP. Just last week, Baldur's Gate won Game of the Year at the Game Awards. Hasbro finds itself at an odd crossroads. Its toys business is declining, yet it suddenly has an unexpected cash cow in its hand in Wizards of the Coast, which it bought 24 years ago. The D&D strategy is a broad four-quadrant strategy where we have this powerful brand that has similar awareness, say, like Lord of the Rings or Harry Potter, said Cox in an investor call last December, which gave us an insight into the company's plans. But there are growing pains in Hasbro's attempt to turn Dungeons & Dragons, a game system where groups of players develop their own plot and characters, into something like Harry Potter and Lord of the Rings, where every fan knows the same characters across characters and stories. While the movie Dungeons & Dragons Honor Amongst Thieves got good reviews when it came out in March, it ultimately underperformed at the box office. To position Hasbro for growth, we must first make sure our foundation is solid and profitable, Cox wrote in the company memo. To do that, we need to modernize our organization and get even leaner, which means, of course, that 2,000 people, which represents about 30%, I believe, of Hasbro's employees will be without jobs between now and Christmas. So, and that, of course, goes all the way back to this past December. So thank you very much for leaning up your business, Chris. So they say Dungeons and Dragons is doing well, and that it's nice and profitable, and it's what's driving the company, and so on and etc. But I question that. I question that a little bit. As I mentioned, and we've been talking about this all year long, Wizards of the Coast managed to anger a large portion of not just their Dungeons and Dragons, but Magic the Gathering fan base. And by the way, Wizards of the Coast, if you think we're going to let go of that, think again, we're not. So it brings us to kind of the next interesting point about this. So let's have a quick gander here. Now, this is a discount chain that I actually only just found out about, and we've apparently got some locally, so maybe I'll have to do a short video checking this out. Dungeons and Dragons buyout at Ollie's Bargain Outlet. Dungeons and Dragons buyout. Score a critical hit with Dungeons & Dragons accessories up to 80% off of the fancy store prices. Folks, we just landed a major deal on one of the most popular role-playing games of all time. Our inventory is stocked with tons of Dungeons & Dragons stuff like action figures, creature packs, dungeon builders, board games, and more. Here are just some of the things you could see. Creature and terrain campaign cases, your choice, $2.99. There's $49.99. Classic action figures, just $9.99. There's $19.99. Dragonlance Warriors of Kryn game, $9.99. There's $99.99. These deals won't last long, so roll into Ollie's today for the best selection. Thank you very much, Ollie's. Yeah, I've apparently got one of these close to me. I may have to check them out, but the very well-performing Dungeons & Dragons brand is dumping stock. They're hemorrhaging this stuff, which I should point out is undermining the cornerstone of tabletop role-playing game hobbies, the mom-and-pop store. These items that they're blowing out at 90%, is actually hurting your FLGS. But the reason this stuff is being blown out is it's bloat that Wizards couldn't sell. All right. Who here, show of hands, remembers things like the D&D wood burning set, color forms, things like that you'd see in Five and Dimes and dump racks at Zayre's and Kmart back in the early mid-1980s. That's where we are with Wizards of the Coast and Dungeons and Dragons and this stuff. You might say, oh, they're just clearing out 5e. Board games are evergreen, guys. These are not based in rule sets. This is something that you would think that a healthy company could just print and print and print and print and fit to any edition of the game. I mean, terrain packs are something that even I, as an old schooler, would want to get. But to return to the question of stock and so on, yeah, look at this. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I can read enough of stock information to see that back in September, Hasbro was at almost 70% or $70 a share. And as of today, they have cratered. Look at that. They have cratered during the Christmas shopping season, the biggest time of the year for toy and specialty companies. They have cratered by 1/3 of their stock value. Maybe I can't read a prospectus as well as somebody else, but guys, this ain't good. Hasbro's hemorrhaging employees. They're having to lean up. They're leaning on Wizards of the Coast. And I can't imagine that they wouldn't try and wring as much cash as possible to keep the sick man of hobby gaming, Hasbro, alive just a little bit longer. But of course, I want to know what you guys think. Is this something that Hasbro can recover from? Is this a desperate bailing out water move on their part? Is this just a minor adjustment? Let me know down in the comments below what you think. And again, if you like this video, please do give it a thumbs up. And if you haven't already, please click the subscribe button and the bell icon for notifications. You can support this show on Patreon or via YouTube memberships. Links are in the description below. Thank you all very much. We'll be back later, of course, with more videos and more news on this as it develops. So until then, keep one eye on the bottom line and don't make any investments between now and the first of the year. Peace. Take care of yourself. I'll see you around.